Hi everyone. We're here today at Home Instead, and as many of you know from my previous recordings, that I'm very, very happy to be able to use this facility. Facility is on Route 19 right by Movies of Meadville. And because of Lisa Bailey, she lets me use the upstairs of her facility to do our filming. And today I have one that's not necessarily anything about my dog and me, but something that should be of interest to many of us because it's a program on wildlife in need. So we're going to start first of all by introducing to you Sue DeArment, who's with me. And Sue, how did this get started? What is it? Tell us all about wildlife in need. And I'll keep on interrupting you as I do, which they're used to me doing.
Sure.
And you add additional things.
It started with when I retired from being a wildlife rehabilitator. And I talked with my aunt, Ellie Davies, about it. And she thought it was a great idea, but I had taken a 3-year break from the time I retired to the time I decided to create this organization. And I experienced problems with people that were concerned about animals, but were afraid or could not contain them and bring them to the center.
Once they saw something that was wrong. Okay.
Right, and I had a network of volunteers, but they weren't that many, that would capture the animal and bring them to the center. I had worked at Tamarack Wildlife Rehabilitation and Education Center at that time, and most of those people spent hours on the road. So I also, after retiring, joined the Wildlife Council in Harrisburg and found out that the other rehabilitators in the state had the same problem that I did. And I said, how would you like to have an organization with people that would go out and get the animals and bring them to the center?
Because that was always the hardest thing.
That was, and I didn't realize it was a statewide problem. So when I talked to Aunt Ellie, she said, what do you think you're going to name it? And I said, what do you think about wildlife in need? And she about jumped off her chair, and she said, yes.
Sounds like a great idea.
Oh yeah, she was, yeah. And so after she passed, I decided it was time to really get started on this.
Okay, so you started from just a theory, an idea, in your opinion, a need, that could be one step down from what they were doing at the rehabilitation centers. Because the centers existed, but we had a gap there getting them from my yard to the center to provide care.
Yes.
So that's what this does now.
Right.
So how many wildlife in need, no, that's not, obviously not the same name, but how many organizations are like that in Pennsylvania? Are you just it?
When I was at Tamarack, I started a dispatch system there. So I sort of took the idea and just broadened it. And some organizations that are rehabbers have their own capture and transport permittees. And that's permitted through the Pennsylvania Game Commission. So there's some training involved with that.
Well, I noticed that in the information you gave me. There's a lot of training. Well, not a lot, but they're like they oversee, or they're kind of the one in charge of that, the Game Commission?
Right, they are the ones that give you your permit once you get sponsored by a wildlife rehabilitator, and you take the capture and transport course, which can be either done on course or in a classroom presentation.
Okay, let's go back to, so you have this, and what areas do you service?
Entire area of Pennsylvania.
All of Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Someone calls you from Harrisburg. Do you call somebody there, or do you have a volunteer there, or they don't have their own? Who has? Wait a minute, I'm confused now.
Okay.
How many places such as Tamarack have their own people that will go out and get the animals?
Well, it used to be Tamarack, and it used to be Humane Animal Rescue in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And some rehab centers would prefer to have their own, and those are mostly in the Philly area. But they still call on us. So I had the advantage because I knew the rehabilitators in the state to reach out to them and be able to help recruit people through the rehabilitators.
How hard was it for you to sell this idea?
Not hard at all.
No, everybody knew you needed it.
Right.
And you were the one that was willing to step forth and do it.
Right. Right.
So, are you based out of a building or just out of your home, or
It's out of my home.
out of your home with a what is it, a toll-free number, or someone calls you if they're in trouble?
What
how do I
happens
get you?
is, well, and we've gone through some transitions, and just this year, with the network problems we've been having in our area, because we were missing calls and I couldn't understand why. It's because the area that I live in basically has very little cell phone service.
Really?
And yeah.
As we
and-
know in this area,
and
that's
yes,
such a problem.
Yes, it is. And so I had originally used an answering service, which was too expensive for what we had at that point. And we were able to, as I say, we as the board of directors, which I have changed through us growing, said that we need to get financially more secure before we can use this answering service. Well, this year it got to the point where we needed the answering service again, which has been very helpful. So what happens is there's a number that they call, it's 814-414-4224. And this, it goes through a phone system where there's 5 different selections they can pick from. And one of those selections is, if you have an animal that needs captured, please press, and it's 3. That will get the communication services to answer very basic questions. What's your name? You know, what is the animal? What is happening with it? And they say, then they'll say, I will contact a wildlife in need dispatcher. So the dispatcher then calls, gets all the other pertinent information. Where is the animal located? Is it in your yard? Is it on the highway? Are you still with it? What's your address? You know, how can we contact you? You know, all the pertinent information to try to get it to the right group of people. So we have Pennsylvania divided out into 16 areas. So if it's in Dauphin County, for example, Harrisburg, that may be area 8. We have a cluster of volunteers in area 8 that once we, as the dispatchers, get the information, we have an app that they load that information in through their cell phone, and once they submit it or unassign it, it goes out to the capture and transport people or the wildlife couriers.
And this is all, how many wildlife in need placement places, or how many different, I'm confused. Is wildlife in need statewide then?
Yes.
Okay, all right, got that.
It's just the headquarters is in Meadville.
Okay, now, if someone calls, like if I had a problem at my house with an animal that was injured, I would call the Game Commission. They usually answer the phone, but then they transfer it to you, or how does it get to you from them? Because that's who most of us probably use. I mean, I think
somewhat.
Well, that's what I would think.
Right.
I mean, what do I know? I'm from the city.
Well,
So I don't know much. I had to learn all that. But so the Game Commission contacts you?
the Game Commission can, depending on the situation. Yes,
What the
they
animal
do
is
refer. So now the Game Commission has a centralized dispatch system, which changed this year.
Mm-hmm.
And all those calls actually are filtered through Harrisburg. And many of those that are on the Game Commission dispatch will refer to us. And we go back and forth, because if we don't have somebody in a certain area, for instance, there's an injured raccoon and it doesn't sound like it's doing well, we have to have people that are certified to be able to go out and capture a raccoon. Not everybody that's a capture and transport person can go out unless they have taken the courses and have their shots. If it's something like that, we don't want the animal to suffer waiting for somebody from another county to come over or another area to come over. We'll refer it back to the Game Commission, and say that we don't have somebody in that area, can you go? So it goes back and forth between us. Now, a lot of times the Game Commission officers will pick up an animal and it's in their vehicle, and all of a sudden they're spread thin. So they have all these other calls. They'll call us to say, can you meet me, so it can go to a certain rehabilitation center. So we work together to get the animal where it needs to go as quickly as possible.
Okay, what type of animals are we talking about here?
Anything but deer, except for fawns. So we don't take in deer or bear, adult otters, fishers, bobcat.
Fishers are the a type of cat.
Fisher
aren't they?
cat.
Fisher cat. Okay.
It's like a big, huge weasel.
Okay, gotcha.
They're
You don't do those.
they're dangerous. They're too dangerous.
They were brought in from another, what, Canada or someplace, or they've been in this area not that long, have they?
Well, not really.
Okay.
Probably in the last 5 years, and they've spread out. They were brought in because the porcupines were eating people's motorcycle seats and
Oh, wow.
chewing on
And the Fisher
tires.
cats take care of
and,
that?
Yeah, but
Okay.
they also take care of everything else.
Okay, so what else are so you don't take deer, you take fawns, you don't take bear, you don't take the Fisher cats. What else don't you take? Is that just about
Venomous snakes. We're
I
not
wouldn't take
trained.
any cake, any snake, forget that.
Well, everybody has their own
Yes, okay.
ideas, but we are very careful with what we go out for, because safety is so important. We're volunteers.
I know, and I'm a
know.
volunteer in an organization too, and
Right.
whenever it doesn't go my way, I say, what part of this don't they understand? I'm a volunteer. That's my usual line. I'm a volunteer. Why am I putting up with
Right.
all this? Well, now,
Right.
what do you take care of?
Any animal that a rehabilitation center will admit.
Which would be what?
It depends on the rehabilitation center. For example, Tamarack Wildlife, they don't have rabies vector species right now, which includes
What's that?
Anything that is known to carry
Okay.
rabies. There's raccoons, skunk, woodchuck, fox, coyote, bats.
They don't take,
They don't take them.
who takes those?
Humane Animal Rescue does in Pittsburgh.
All right, I'm going to say something that people are going to probably write terrible things about, but honestly, who really cares about some of these animals? I mean, if I saw some of those animals, I mean, you talk about dogs and cats, and my hair and my back goes up. I want them taken
Right,
care of, but
right.
there's a lot of people who say, what the heck, that's one less turkey buzzard. That's one less turkey buzzard we have to deal with.
They're
I mean,
protected.
well, I
Yeah.
know they are, but most
Yeah.
people don't care.
No, I
You
wouldn't
think they
say
care, but they just don't know what to do.
I think that's what it is. They don't realize that there's a resource out there that can help these animals. And yeah, there are some that believe that nature takes their course. As in, some cases maybe that's better, because that's the conservation part of me that looks at things and say, well, okay, for instance, we're getting inundated with mange fox right now throughout the state. So you take a mange fox out of its area, go take it to a rehabilitation center, and then they have to find a place or return it close to where they came from. Why are you taking a mange animal that's carrying disease, treating it, and putting it back in to get more disease?
From Meadville to Pittsburgh.
Mostly it's Pittsburgh right now, or Allegheny County.
Right, so you would...
And all the southern tier is just inundated with mange, fox, skunk. There's been some raccoon as well. So mange is a really epidemic right now.
And what is mange?
It's a mite that crawls underneath the skin, and it lays eggs under the skin, and that's what causes the itching. And the mites grow and go through the body, and they actually affect the hair follicles or the fur follicles, so that's why their fur falls off.
Same type of mange you would see on a dog?
Yes, same thing.
Same thing.
Right.
Okay, so you have that list now. These are the ones that you'll take care of. But who takes the birds?
Okay, now Tamarack Wildlife specializes in birds of prey. And the only reason I'm picking on Tamarack, not only because I was the rehabilitator there
No,
as
that's
well,
fine.
But to understand what we have in our area, Tamarack specializes in birds of prey.
Which are?
Okay, you can talk your vultures.
Vultures?
Okay, your eagles, your falcons,
Okay.
your hawks, your owls.
And they're mostly, if they are injured and there's one in my yard, then Tamarack will probably help them if they can.
They will, and if you call or the Game Commission call, you call the Game Commission, we call them, and then they will say, bring it in. They never really say no for birds of prey. They may get inundated. They get inundated with turtles. They do turtles as well. And there's a time of year that the turtles are out looking for
Crossing
nesting
322.
site. Well, they go to a hot spot
Sure.
to lay their eggs and then come back through, or they're sort of nomads, but they get hit all the time by cars. And there's so many of them.
Pardon me, I know people that will stop the traffic on 322 outside of Conneaut Lake and help to get that turtle to the other side of the road.
Hi, I'm one of those people.
I know people that do that too, and that's a big thing. Well, now, so that's something else is that the category of Pittsburgh, or is that the category of Tamarack?
Well, if Tamarack can take them, they will.
They'll take a turtle.
But if they can't, then we call another rehabilitator that might be open to it. Now, Tamarack and Humane Animal Rescue are the largest centers in the western side of the state. You have a couple other backyard rehabilitators that work out of their homes, and they don't have that
Really?
many volunteers, but they fill up quickly. So we also contact them as well. The problem is we only have 28 rehabilitation centers in the state, and there's 67 counties in the state.
Oh, wow.
So we really need more rehabilitators in the state, and being on the Wildlife Council, we're trying to do the best we can to try to get more rehabilitators in the state, because that's the main problem. But in the meantime, Wildlife in Need or the Game Commission goes out to these other counties and get the animals, and then tries to find a way to get them to a place that will care for them.
Is there ever a point, who makes a decision that the animal is in such shape that it probably isn't going to be rehabilitated, or it just isn't going to make it?
That would be the rehabilitator. We can't make those decisions.
So you transport it, and then somebody else makes a decision whether or not.
That's correct.
We had a funny story years ago. I don't know whether you were a Tamarack or not at that point, but I had the softball fields in Conneaut Lake, and we were playing softball. There were 4 fields out there, and during the game, the geese that used to be all over the fields up there, and I used to say that it gave a different definition to sliding into second base because there was so much goose poop. And the geese came over, and a guy hit a huge high fly ball, and didn't it hit a goose? I mean, what are the chances?
Yeah.
And Don, it came, and I don't know whether it ever made it there. I know somebody went, got the box. I know the person well. She works at Meadville Medical Center. Anybody that knows Mary Neerman knows that she.
I know.
She's always rescuing something. If I have something in my yard, I say, Mary, I need you to come. I have a turtle that needs to get out of here, and she'll take him, and then maybe she'll transfer him to Geneva or someplace out of my yard.
Ooh.
But she is.
That's
she
not
was.
really
I know,
good.
but she was really good at taking care of things like that. So what's the most common things that you personally have dealt with?
Gosh, I deal with everything. So,
Well, there's certain ones that I would be concerned with. When I see those little owls, and I did a
screech
program
owls.
on those little owls and stuff like that, or if I saw any hawks or something, or an eagle, boy, I would really be concerned about getting help for them right away.
Right, right.
And we had this conversation before we started this, and I said, but there are certain things that I say, I don't care whether or not that animal makes it or not. And I don't think that that's anything against me. I think that's the common belief of people. Why do I care about that?
I think that's an educational thing.
I do too, because I think people, and I always use the example, I drive school bus, and I always say, they say, why are you slowing down? I say, because that's what I do. I don't even want, there's a squirrel going across the street in front of me and I slow down because I don't want to hit anything
Right.
ever, ever, ever. But
Right.
I know that there are some real idiots out on the roads whose biggest goal in life is to wait until an animal that doesn't have the ability necessarily to get out of the way fast enough and aims for them.
Right.
And that then makes me nuts. And then
Right.
whenever I jump on the bandwagon with you and say, tell me what we do here, because at least I know you're trying to help, as opposed to the idiots out there that get great joy out of destroying things and killing things.
Right, right. And pretty much if you see a situation like that, they're usually in a car.
Get the license plate.
Get the license plate. And you have many witnesses usually,
Wow.
So the problem is the Game Commission has to have proof
Right.
before they can cite somebody. So, a license plate number, witnesses. There was a situation, and I'll tell you this situation that happened at Tamarack, and I lived at Tamarack in Sagertown at that point. And I had dogs in the back fenced-in area, and they started barking like crazy. And I looked out the kitchen window, and there's a car diagonal in the road, right near the education center. Well, I had all the cages behind the education center. And here, it was some people that got out and literally started beating the animals and beating the cages. And there was...
What?
Yeah, and there was proof there because I caught them that they left. I had the license plate number, and they also left some of their evidence behind.
Was anything ever done to them?
I don't know. That's the thing. You
That's
never
what
know.
I wouldn't want to know.
yeah,
I mean, I would
no.
want to know, but I don't want to
No,
know because
no,
if it wasn't
that's-
done to them, I want to do something to them.
That's
You
the,
shouldn't do stuff like that.
that's the Game Commission's responsibility. That's not mine. That's law enforcement.
Okay, so is there anything else we need to know just about getting these animals? Because then I want to ask you how we get involved and everything about your organization.
Right. I mean, basically, it's just getting to know what organizations are out there, because people that I talk to get so frustrated because they've called every SPCA that they know of, every rescue, but those are domestics. Some people don't know there's wildlife rehabilitators in the state. They don't know that WIN exists. It's only 5 years old. So we're a fairly new organization. And, they call the Game Commission, and the Game Commission, they're on a skeleton crew oftentimes, and they can't get there as fast as people would like to have them come. Sometimes it's the next day, and that's the best they can do. So the idea is to try to get the word out.
Well, let's talk about that. First of all, I just started another Facebook page. It's called D&M Doggy Digest and More. So you're in the qualification of and more. And I will certainly put an ad that'll be on the bottom of my Facebook page and also on the Doggy Digest forever now, since I know what you're doing and we want to promote that and promote anything you do like that. I'm big on promoting 501c3s because
Right.
they need all the help they can get. So we need to promote, but do schools, are you available to go out anywhere and do this? I mean, I found you whenever I was inside Home Instead, and maybe you saw my truck or whatever, and you pulled in, and then I said, hey, wait a minute, don't you do this? And I'd remembered that from a conversation, and that's how I hook up. How does a school, a college, a community group, a women's group, a church group, how do they find you?
Oftentimes, it's when they come across a situation that affects them. They're looking, and they look on the internet oftentimes. So we have a majority of our calls come because they looked up wildlife, and they saw wildlife in need PA. So that's how that's the new way of doing things is through social media.
But if anybody wants you to go into the schools, the Boy Scouts, the 4-H, every conceivable place, I want to really spread you thin here so I don't have to worry about you chasing me around or anything. But that would be great because we could get more people that come out and do this. How many people speak besides you? Are you it?
The other people are a little bit more reserved.
Not as willing to do this.
But that's another situation that I've created because I've asked 4 new people to come on our board. So because we're growing, I want to see that part grow.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, so they can call me, and then I can certainly go in and talk about it, but I can't bring animals in. That's not allowed. I can go in and talk about what we do. I have a slideshow presentation that I can present.
I think that's great.
Certainly, yeah.
Because I bet if I go back to where I work and I say, how many people in here have ever heard of Wildlife in Need and what they do? I bet maybe 1 out of 10 might say they know.
Okay.
And that's sad.
Yes.
Because you're doing such a great job, but the word just isn't getting out because we spend all our time on other crazy things instead of something that really needs some support.
Right, yeah, we're Wildlife in Need Emergency Responsive PA. If you look up Wildlife in Need, just as Wildlife in Need on the internet, it's other organizations that are not within the state.
Oh, okay, right.
You know, so our Facebook page is Wildlife in Need PA.
Okay.
You know, so
that's cool. That's good.
Right. And a lot of it's by word of mouth. And a lot of people that care about animals seem to be able to have their own little network. That they've had some experience, and they say, well, I got your name from so-and-so. You know, so...
Well, no, keep going. I was just going to, I quickly wanted to think of another question. My question to you is, how does somebody become a volunteer?
Okay. Going through our website, which is https://winemergencyresponse.com, on there are volunteers' opportunities. Our volunteer opportunities are, we have dispatchers, we have capture and transport people, we have wildlife couriers, and then we're looking for county coordinators or regional coordinators, which really are or should be the capture and transport permittees. To become any one of those, there is all a learning process with educational tools that can be found online.
So somebody can take the courses online.
Right.
And then I'm sure that you're always available to help. And then if they really are interested and really get pulled into this, then you can say, oh, another volunteer, that's great.
There's an application process as well.
For the application to be a volunteer.
And as soon as I get the application, I look at it. We do a background check on everybody because there's some people out there that have been cited by the Game Commission.
Well, sure. Wait a minute. I know the perfect idea here. Be the idiot who's out there aiming for the animals and doing terrible things, sign up with you. You don't do a background check and find out that I'm the nut who's trying to kill the animals on the road and hurt them, and I end up being with you. So obviously you have to go through all that.
Right.
Oh, my God.
And in the capture and transport permittee, once they get the certificate from completing the capture and transport course, they have to get a sponsorship letter from the rehabilitator. So we have to have the rehabilitators supporting our organization too.
Rehabilitators,
so,
Tamarack.
Wildlife rehabilitators, anybody, any rehabilitator in the state of Pennsylvania can sponsor a person.
Is that, if they're up here, it'd be basically then Tamarack?
No, it's all over the state.
Oh, all over the state.
All over the state. So any of the rehabilitators throughout the state can sponsor somebody. And they all have different requirements for doing that. And then the application is sent in with the sponsorship letter and the certificate of completion. And then it goes through 3 levels of the Pennsylvania Game Commission. It goes to the district, regional, and state level to make sure that none of the people have been cited or if there's some reason that they should not get their permit. Now, 99% of the people that have applied have actually, gotten their permit.
Are a lot of people hunters and basically
Some
hunters?
of them are, yeah.
I was thinking, this is how crazy I am, why wouldn't they put something out in the, don't hunters have to apply for a permit or something to be a hunter? Why don't they?
Oh, they always have a license.
Yeah, why don't they
Yeah.
send it out, the BIN, to all those people and let them know that it exists? I mean, there'd be another way to get information. I'm trying to think of how to get information out because now I'm upset with the fact that I don't think everybody knows about you.
Right, right,
So that's great. I mean, at least
Right.
we're starting with that.
right, right. And we do need more people in certain areas. Now, let me talk about the areas. The biggest area that has the most, I call it submissions, those animals that have been captured, is the Montgomery County area. That's your first highest.
Where's that?
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
Well, it's actually, yeah, it's
Is-
down in that area.
Okay.
Philadelphia is a different, this is north of Philadelphia. But highly populated area is in the southeast. The second highest is Erie.
Erie.
Erie has the second highest number of calls and responses that we go for. Right.
Are a lot of those associated with the lake,
Yes.
in the lake area?
Right.
Well, then my next question would be, what about Pymatooning in that area?
That's the same area that we get a lot of calls,
A lot
but
of calls.
also the DCNR take over that area as well. So when you talk about Pymatooning State Park, that involves the Game Commission and the DCNR.
Oh, so that's another factor in there.
Right, and we work with them too. If they want us to come in, we'll come in, but oftentimes they take care of it themselves. You know, so let me
Yeah,
talk
oh, my
about
heavens,
Erie.
go.
Let me
Yes,
talk about
Erie.
Erie because I'm, you know, that's where I used to go birding. That's one of the best migratory bird areas in the state.
I only say I know that because
Right.
I do purple martins, and don't they all go north to Erie before they go south?
Right.
That's my fact of life. That's one of the things I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
all go there. People don't believe me, and they say, where are the purple martins? I said, they left. They're on their way to Erie.
Right.
They say, what do you mean they're on their way to Erie? Why aren't they on their way some other place? I says, no, that's where they go.
That's
and
a
then
migratory route.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that
yeah.
a migratory route for a lot of different birds?
Warblers in particular? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You have your hawks. There's people up there that count the birds every day that fly over the Tom Ridge Center.
Oh, wow. What about bluebirds? Is there another one?
They're another one.
They're
yeah.
big up there too. Well, I know that everybody that watches my programs has seen me do the 3 programs with Mark Ritke, who does the bluebird houses all over Erie and Crawford and Venango, I think, are the 3 places that he goes. So that's why there's so many up in the Erie and this whole northern area there.
Right, and then you have a high waterfowl population up there as well.
Oh, sure.
And one of our biggest calls across the state, but we see it oftentimes up in Erie, are waterfowl, whether that be geese, ducks, or even the gulls, entangled in fishing line.
Oh.
You know, these situations are
They're
you know,
preventable.
preventable, all of it.
Yes.
Even with the people that you say that go after a flock of geese as the geese are crossing and the young are crossing the roads, they will go through them. That's so illegal.
That is so wrong. You're getting
It
my
is
blood,
wrong, it's illegal.
You're getting my blood pressure
it's
up. That's
preventable. I know.
I can't believe people do that.
They do it.
And you know, I spend my time worrying about the people that are hurting the dogs and cats, but my God, this is just as bad when people are just intentionally doing stuff like that.
And I don't believe that all these people that leave their fishing lines, and it's probably that the kids that are doing it too, have not been mentored correctly by their adults.
Is that
whether
one
it
of
be
those things
parents-
that apples do not fall far from the tree?
Right.
That's always a story, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, right.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
always a good one too. Well, what else? I want to talk about how they can help you, and let's talk about it being a 501c3 too. Is there anything else that you're thinking that we have talked about, and we certainly have talked about a lot, and I think our cameraman has some charts that you sent him that he might be able to throw into the program too.
Right, right.
Did we discuss all them? I think we did.
We did because Wildlife in Need, pretty much our volunteers are pretty close to the rehabilitation centers. And so we are pretty much under the authority of the rehabilitation centers when it comes to rehabilitating what they will take in.
How many?
Okay.
How many birds in that can Tamarack take in? How many can they take? How many do they have there on a given time?
Oh, I couldn't tell you that anymore.
50? Is that a lot?
Well, it is a lot.
Oh, is
but
it? Okay.
see, you know, they can get as many as 10 animals in a day. And of course, not all of those animals make it. As a previous rehabilitator or a retired rehabilitator, I know that 25% of those animals that are admitted die because of the trauma.
Yeah.
You know, so it can change from day to day.
Well, you and I were once involved with the Crawford County Animal Response Team.
Right.
And are they mostly, I forget now, are they mostly domestic animals there?
Right. We were told we were not allowed to respond to wildlife.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a whole different area.
I remember
of
us
its
doing
own.
that. I remember that's when we both knew Regina Martin there, and I just
Right.
talked to the girl who's going to be doing a program for me on homeopathic medicine, and it's
Mel.
Melanie,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Right.
And she used to do a lot with the birds too, but that's somebody else's. I mean, these are programs that I always say to people, if you know of a program out there such as this, or anything that people need to know more about, then you need to contact me so I can agitate my cameraman and I can drag him someplace so we can do
Right.
more programs.
Right.
What else, going back to what else have we forgotten here? Because then we're going to talk about the
Geez.
501.
Well, the biggest thing is when anybody goes out to get an animal, it's not the adrenaline rush that people think it is. It is very challenging in the fact that it's difficult in some situations. We have to watch out for the safety of all involved. That includes
Sure.
our volunteers, that includes the people that we may even recruit sometimes when we don't have enough people to help. The safety of the animal. You know, so it's safe, safe, safe. It's not for everybody, yet it's for those that care, that want to help get these animals to a rehabilitation center for continued care. So, somebody's squeamish about blood. You know, we see the worst of the worst out there.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know, we just have to keep calm. And what the safest thing for any wild animal is dark, warm, and quiet, and safe.
Dark.
Warm, quiet, and safe. Now, I don't mean putting it on a heating pad,
Right.
meaning that it's not out in the snow and you're waiting to try to figure out what to do. If it is an animal that can be contained, those are animals such as a very sick squirrel, you know, something that you can contain without jeopardizing yourself from being bit. And again, it has to do with the equipment. Always wear gloves, and I always say gloves and a sheet, a towel, or something else.
Sure.
You know,
Do you do squirrels too? And chipmunks? No.
yeah,
Really?
right.
What are the things that are in my yard that you would do if I saw them injured? Squirrels, chipmunks, skunks, raccoons, possums?
Yep,
I did a program on possums.
I hear you breathing.
I know you did, because I can't think of the name of the possum. I don't even think the possum is still living. But it's a possum that went around to all the schools and did a program.
Oh, that was...
Priscilla. Was it Priscilla?
I can't think of the name either.
It was something like that.
It was Janelle that
Yes.
did the training
Yes,
or
that was
teaching on that. That was great.
Oh, it was unbelievable. We did a
Right.
program on that, and I kept on saying, I think he's going to jump on me. I didn't like him too much at all. But these are things that could be in any one of our, I mean, we're farmland up here too.
Right.
So there's an awful lot that comes around.
And tell you the truth, you know, you're talking about farmers and farmland. That's how rehabilitation started. Was from the
Really?
wives that took care of the animals. That's how it started years ago. Yep.
I'm a big fan of the incredible Dr. Pol, which he always cracks me up. But on that Geo Wild, There are such phenomenal programs on there, and the one that I always like to watch is whenever they're capturing the birds up in the North Pole in that area, and how they rehab them and stuff like that. They rehab everything there.
Right.
And it's fantastic. I find myself glued to that many times, because they'll take something that has been injured and they'll say, how are they ever going to fix that and get that
Right.
animal back into where they're supposed to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So you are a 501c3, which
That is
for the
correct.
people that don't know, what's a 501c3 mean? How do you make your money?
It's a nonprofit charitable organization that's registered through the IRS, which gives us the privilege to be able to take in donations.
Right.
You know,
And
so
that's the time that we want to talk about donations, because it's becoming that time of year. And
Right.
that's whenever people are doing their income tax.
right,
And they are thinking about that they'd like to make some donations so that it helps them on their income tax.
right,
And this is whenever they want to consider organizations such as yours. They want to talk about all the shelters that we have out there,
Right.
the work that's being done with all the dog shelters, or we just did one on the low-cost spade and neuter, anything like that. I get fanatical, and here I go again, but I get fanatical that people who, and it's okay, they give a lot of money to national organizations.
right,
But if you give $1,000 to a national organization, it might mean $10 to the local. So you want to give all your donations, if you can, to anything that's happening to us locally.
Right.
Local or in the state, and not going to these big ones because they get so much anyways. So it'd be great if people made some donations to you. That would help too.
right. And we do send out an appeal letter for those addresses that we had gotten through the year. And we only do that once a year. That usually goes out around December, and it's a story that grabs the heart. And then there's an envelope in there and a form to fill out. And that has helped us a lot.
It better, and we're going to keep on
Right.
pushing that.
Right, and that grows from year to year. And
Because if you gave 1 year, you might give another year.
right, but that's true. Yes, some don't, some will. And when it has actually touched somebody's heart, you know, they will more than likely donate. But they also do not just donate to one organization. If somebody donates to Wildlife in Need,
Sure.
they'll donate to Tamarack Wildlife. They'll
Sure.
donate to Humane Animal Rescue or whatever rehab center is, you know,
Look.
available, because that has actually affected them in one way or another.
Okay, so of all the things you've ever gone out and rescued, tell me the three that touched your heart the most. That you, you remember without a question. These would be
There
the
was
three
this-
best.
Yeah, a saw-whet owl that.
A what?
A saw-whet owl was the smallest owl in Pennsylvania.
Oh, I think
Yeah.
when we did a program on, I think Donnie had something that was about so big.
Peaker, probably Peaker.
Okay, and
That
what
was
else?
his
So one of
name,
those.
You know, one of the most challenging is turkey, because turkey are extremely intelligent, wary, and you know they'll run from you. And it took me 7 trips to below Pittsburgh until I was able to get the turkey that came into somebody's backyard to feed that had avian pox. When I saw that animal the first time, I'm going, oh my God, this animal needs help. I'm a type of person, when you see it, you own it. Okay, so
Right.
that was very challenging, but we did get it and take it to Humane Animal Rescue. And the best thing we could do for that is put it down. Because
But it wasn't
I tell you what, it was one of those things that touched my heart, because I care for animals and I don't like things that suffer.
No, I don't either.
So this is when I had another girl that helped me to catch it. When I caught it, part of the wing fell off. That's how bad it was.
Oh.
And it was just like, oh my God. So there's the compassion there. You know, people say, well, I don't want you putting anything down and to the rehabber. Well, sometimes that's the gift you can give an animal, you know, so that sticks in my mind as well.
That's a gift we can give to our domestic animals too.
True, yes.
Because so many times we tend to hang on to them just a little too long.
Well, that's
a tough one.
That's very tough.
Yep,
that's
it really
totally
is.
different because you lived with that critter, and
Yes,
and
it's hard.
That's part of your family, you know. So
what have been anything else? Tell me another one that you
there's
helped with.
the eagle one lately. Now I'm at the point in my life that, you know, I've captured, I can't tell you how many eagles. But now I'm being a mentor to those that don't have that much experience. And we just went up to Warren to capture an eagle that was, I'm surprised anybody ever found it. But I called my girl from Erie, and then in the Game Commission, two of the officers met, and actually we're talking about surrounding this eagle if we could find it again. Because if you know Warren, if you go back where the oil fields are, it's nothing but woods and mountains. And it was sitting on this log for 24 hours. And
what was wrong with it?
The game has a broken wing and a concussion.
Could it be saved?
I don't know,
You don't know whether it was or not?
yet. It's at Tamarack right now.
Really?
Yeah. And a big girl. She's 12 pounds. That's big. That's big for an eagle. They go from, you know, average, you know, 9 pounds to 11 pounds or so, but you can get a 12 or a 13.5-pound eagle in, and that's a big female. Well, when we first went in, and the game commissioner officers knew, you know, where it was, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's not there. So we have 2 people that drove an hour and a half, and 2 game commissioner officers from 2 different areas. And then somebody says, oh, there it is. All you saw was the head, the white head. That's all we saw. So they went down below because we needed to surround it. Because the day before, the one officer who knew to not go any further than what he did, he took a net out and realized that as soon as that eagle saw him, it jumped off the log and ran. He couldn't get it. If you know anything about the foliage and how thick those woods are up in Warren. So we actually surrounded this, and then it realized something's wrong here. It jumped off, and it jumped off into some bushes, thank God. Because then Dorothy, who's my Erie person, went over to get it. And then the officer couldn't see from where he was at, and we were giving him directions to come up. I'm standing above, and all of a sudden I see this eagle look like it was laying on its back. And I said, is that eagle laying on its back? And yeah, I said, cover the head now. They had sheets or heavy sheets. Put it over the head, because that eagle can see, and if somebody reached for it, that eagle would have gotten him.
Their head turns.
Yeah, so cover the head so it doesn't see you, and then she put her hands on the wings so it wouldn't move, and then there was a branch in between, so the officer had to come up and contain the legs. Most important with a bald eagle is containing those legs, or any bird of prey. And so it took a group effort, and and I'm very willing to be a mentor for somebody, to go out and give them instructions, because I need these people that are younger than me to start going out, because I'm starting to age. You laugh.
We are.
We are.
Yes.
You know, I can't always do the things I used to do. I wish I could, but I have to accept that I can't.
Well,
so I'd rather train somebody under me, or several people under me, to be able to do things safely.
Well, I hope that we get you some volunteers. I hope we get you some donations. I hope that people become a little bit more aware of the fact that your organization is there, and if we can save one, that's better than saving nothing today.
Right.
So we're always looking at one that's built on 1, 2, or whatever.
Right.
Anything else I need to know that our public needs to know?
Oh, I could tell you a lot of things, but
we'll get you again, I'm sure.
I'm passionate about what I do, and you know, I realize that the people that volunteer for me don't have that same type of passion, but we accept anybody. You know, a lot of our people are active retired people. Some people are only available evenings and weekends.
You'll take them.
You know, I'll take them. Some people are only available one day a month.
Tell
They don't
us-
get called much, but
Yeah, tell us that website again.
okay, it's https://winemergencyresponse.com.
And where does the Pennsylvania enter into this?
That's the Facebook page,
Okay.
Wildlife in Need PA Facebook.
Okay. I hope it works. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed this. I found about all these things. Now I'm going to really be nervous about anything I see. I'll say, oh my God, you know.
You know me personally. They say,
I know,
"Hey,
I can
Sue."
find you in a heartbeat. Okay, thanks very much for coming. I really
Oh,
appreciate
thank
it.
you for having me as well.
Good.